Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ultimate Winter Boilermakers. I'm joined tonight with our Stellar Master and New South Wales State Manager and Director and Mr. Whiskey of it all, Mr. Everything, Andrew Durbidge. Welcome back.
Hey, good to see you all.
It's Friday night and we're inside and we're enjoying another virtual. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, for being a part of this virtual. Some of you have the beers, some of you have the whiskeys, some of you have both packs. We sent out an email earlier today with some recommendations of what to expect tonight and how to prepare for tonight. One of those things was, of course, the maybe you want to throw those beers in the fridge for a little while. Maybe you want to share them around with someone at home. Maybe you want to share them because there's a fair bit in each can, and they are some pretty potent beers. So I encourage you to actually share these and share them around. Oh, I'm getting feedback.
Sorry, mate, that was me. That was me. Come on. Okay. We've got a tradition going here. I have to do it every time.
Okay, he's got his volume down. We're set to go. We are going live right now. Our background behind us on our stream here is, of course, the can of Carbonado, of which one of the main focuses of tonight is. We're actually going to have some special guests a little bit later in the stream. We're going to be joined by Duncan and Bass from Hop Nation, where this beer was made. But I want to talk a bit about the story about the beer and everything that went into this pack. So this is all about Ultimate Boilermaker Winter Tastings. Andrew, before we get kicked off, do you want to tell us a bit about what a Boilermaker is? What does the word mean? Start us off.
You've thrown me there without any prep, look at in my language, I'm in the construction industry. For me, a Boilermaker is a welder. So a Boilermaker is actually someone who welds piece of steel to piece of steel and fabricates things. I'll be honest and say I don't actually know where the connection came to what we're about to do tonight with as a drink. But what's interesting is a lot of people start out down the world of Boilermakers and hear about them. And I know a lot of people who've got seriously into their Boilermakers only to find out later on that you're actually not meant to tip your whiskey into the beer. So I've seen a lot of people do that, which is interesting. So, the idea is to have one and then the chaser, not actually mix the two together. So hopefully no one's kind of mixed up their drinks tonight to get us off to a poor start. But I'll be honest, mate, if you're aware of how the word and the term came to be, you'll need to educate me as well, because I don't know.
There was some history about it. Something about it was the working class. It was the welder's drink, almost something like that. How it was a knockoff drink after you'd finished work. It was a half and half, or I don't know where the actual word Boilermakers actually comes from. I don't know either. That's why I thought I'd throw that curveball at you nice and early.
Yeah, well, thanks, mate. We're off to a good start.
The whole idea about this tasting tonight was about actually finding what we would call sometimes the society perfect pairings, about finding those examples of flavors coming together in ways that have never either been done before, or just create these flavor pairings that we're quite proud of. And these aren't just sort of whiskeys we've picked out and hoping that the beers pair with them. And it's almost the other way around. We've engineered these pairings from the start to finish to work together. So you should have 3 samples in your box. You should have 3 whiskey samples in your box, and you should have 2 cans of beer. You might want to get those beers out of the fridge now or as soon as possible. You probably don't want to drink them really sort of ice cold. That's you'll lose a lot of those flavors going on there. But yeah, it's enjoyable at any temperature you like, but I would enjoy them just maybe slightly out of the fridge for a little while. Why don't we pour the first one?
I'll just say it is interesting, that whole thing about the correct temperature to have a beer at, and there's certainly certain beers that lend themselves to being quite chilled, and others, room temperature and beyond. And that's in Australia. That's before you even start to get to the European beers, and of course in the UK and so on, what we would call warm beer. But I think it is important. You really do want to get your beer at the right temperature to really get everything out of it.
If you speak to brewers and real beer nerds about this kind of stuff, they say that no beer really should be consumed straight from the fridge, and they should all be sort of brought down a bit so that the temperature should be a little bit higher so that you can appreciate the flavors in it. We say the same thing about whiskey, really, don't we?
Yeah, but the people who say that about beers are the same people who haven't tried VB. I mean, once you have that, you've got to have it chilled. I mean, they're the rules. So
yeah. Some great comments coming through. Someone says Giggity Giggity, which is great. That's Land Rover Bailey. Okay, cool. And then yes, it should. That's why it's called a cold one. Yep, that's something very Australian right there. And Land Rover again says giggity giggity beer and whiskey. Yeah, I can't agree more. And of course, we've also got. It's
good to have Quagmire joining the conversation tonight.
Yes, thank you, Quagmire. And Joel Rinaldi is hands up for this tasting tonight. This is great.
Oh, good day, Joel.
Let's. I thought we'd start with the 12.49. The spicy and sweet. Is this the way to Amarillo? Now, this is on the back page of your tasting notes. We're sort of mixing things up a bit tonight. If you go to that back page on your tasting notes, you can see it's the one on the back, not on the front, middle, or anywhere. It's right on the back there. 12.49. Andrew, you actually featured this whiskey at a Sydney event.
Yes, and it was very well received on the evening. Fantastic drop. And,
yes, Lachlan, I won't read that one out, but I think people can see that comment. That's quite funny. That's probably the most savory VB joke I've ever heard. This one falls into the spicy and sweet category, and it had an extra maturation in had 9 years in an ex-bourbon barrel and then 1 year in an ex-Tempest old-fashioned IPA cask for the remainder of its maturation. So it's had maturation in ex-bourbon and then in a year in an ex-IPA beer cask. That's kind of what tonight's all about, is ex-beer cask whiskeys or ex-whiskey cask beers. So it's actually both sides of the coin we get to taste tonight. And this one, while we don't have the actual old-fashioned IPA beer to go with it, it's a nice sort of primer for us to get used to what ex-beer cask whiskey tastes like. It does carry a different profile from just ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, ex-port, any sort of fortified. It does carry a different profile entirely. And
evening, Mr. Finnegan. Good to see you joining us there. Matt, do you remember a long time ago when it was Grant's actually brought out their ale cask finish, the Grant's blend? House of William Grant and Sons, obviously. Yeah. And they brought out two from memory. And I remember when they came out, the distinction and the different, like you really could taste the beer cask influence on it. It was quite extraordinary. Now that was probably, I'm going to take a punt and say 8 years ago now. But that was one of the first real commercial expressions to shine a light on this, and a very affordable bottling too. It was being a blend that was sort of $40-$45 a bottle. And others have come along then. And we've seen a lot of this in Australia now. You look at a lot of the Australian distilleries that are now putting out releases that have been aged in ex-beer casks. Of course, Bakery Hill have done one very recently, and name escapes me, one of the other ones did it as well. So it's interesting seeing the distillers really play around with these to try and explore new flavours and new areas for us.
Matthew Herdich says, all right, that's enough about Mother's Milk. Herdich, I know you're a big fan of VB, so no more insults towards the great VB going on here. You're all right, Andrew.
That's tough. I mean, I've just, this is my second Boilermaker of the night. I've just come back from the one with VB and Melbourne Bitter paired with Johnny Walker Red and Johnny Walker Black. So, this is, I'm glad we're moving up for this one. This I'm looking forward to this one now.
Yeah. We've made this one easy for you, Andrew. It's fine. BB and MB paired with Red Label, Black Label. That actually sounds like a bit of fun, actually.
It was the Gold Label and Foster's that really let me down. That was shocking.
Gold Label and Foster's. What would Blue Label go with then, I guess? That's
Blue Label.
Yeah. I know. Crown Lager for sure, right?
Yeah.
Crownies, the best of the best. I love the off-the-wall taste.
Good evening to all our friends from Carlton United Breweries tonight.
Beer and oak is mad when combined. Beer needs so little time with oak while it inflects massive flavors into it too. That's a good point. And Tui's as well as a comment here from Kristen. And and Herdich says Crown is just top of the VB keg. Well,
that was the rumor for a long time. It was the top third. They used to say they'd brew the VB and take the top third and bottle it as Crown.
There you go. I hadn't actually heard that one.
No, that was a long. I don't know if it's an urban myth or not, but certainly that was the
So I'd love to see some comments coming through about some people's tasting notes about this 12.49 that we've just started with. I'd add a few drops of water to it. I'm going to add a bit. I'm going to give it a try with water. Try it without. When I say add water, I'm just going to show on the camera now really just how little you need to add. You don't need to add much. I like using a water jug. I'm not a pipette fan. Just a dash, just a drop like that, just to open it right up. It is 60% on the dot. Holds well with water on the nose, that's for sure. A bit more fruit with that water there.
I remember that at the Sydney tasting. I don't know if you remember, Matt. We all had it sort of neat, and the vibe in the room and the response was, "Oh yeah, this is quite nice." And then once word got round the room that you added a few drops, it really opened up. And just saying, I remember everyone, a lot of people had that light bulb moment and suddenly realizing what a few drops of water can do to a cask strength malt.
Yeah. I mean, I do encourage people to add water to their whiskey. So we've talked about this at length before, but just to see what can happen, open up those aromas and let it sing from the glass a bit more without being sort of too much of sort of the ethanol up the top and getting a bit more of the flavors coming through. Oh wow, look at this. Good evening, gentlemen. It's the Gaucho, aka the Deputy. I didn't even know you used Facebook, so that's exciting. Looks like you're on maybe Jen's account or something there. Great to see.
Yeah. Alex, Jen, good to see you both.
Yeah, good to see you both. So that's an example of an ex-IPA cask. That's one where the flavors of the spirit, I guess, have been extra matured in ex-beer maturation. Now that is unusual. If you were to scour, Andrew, if you were to scour, say, I don't know, even 10 years of outturns, I mean, how many do you think we've seen in ex-beer cask maturation or finishes?
It would not be more than 3.
Wow, in 10 years. And we've been putting out 12 to 14 casks a month for at least 5 of those years.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit. And it's quite a bit of output for us to see such little ex-beer cask maturation. But I think it's so exciting. And I actually think the spirit from Distillery 12 matches really nicely with the beer spirit, with the beer cask.
Yeah. Do you think it's interesting when you say, okay, beer cask maturation, is it worth even thinking about the fact that it's specifically an IPA cask as opposed to some other, when we talk about sherry cask and people can, the real nerds dive into, well, is it an Oloroso cask or a Fino cask? So we're going to talk ex-beer. Is it important that this was actually an IPA as opposed to a stout or, some other thing?
Yeah.
Do you reckon there's any legs in diving into that?
I think there is. I mean, it's almost like asking, do different types of sherry casks provide different styles of maturation? And they absolutely do. That's an ex-Manzanilla or ex-Fino is going to be very different from ex-Oloroso, ex-PX. I know sometimes some people struggle to differentiate between even Oloroso and PX a little bit because they can be quite similar in profile at times. I always find PX to be somewhat more, more like sticky date pudding sweetness rather than sort of rounded, much a little bit more savory sort of dried fruits as I get from something like an Oloroso. But I think it could be the same to be said about ex-beer casks. Ex-stout or ex-porter or ex-IPA casks will provide, if it's a cask-aged beer, will provide a different profile to that whiskey. And it is also unusual. It's also worth remarking, cask-aged beers are unusual to begin with. I mean, most beer doesn't see the inside of a cask ever.
Very true. And I mean, you and I are big beer fans, and we chat about beer all the time. And I know you're a big fan of pale ales. What about Indian pale ales?
Oh, you've remarked a number of times about how I like my hops. How I'd like a beer with lots of hops. I am a bit funny about hops at the same time. I think hops in beer should be comparable to peat in whiskey. I think you can have too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I can see Lachlan's just asked here about my backdrop.
Charcoal wall.
Charcoal wall. It's actually I've got a backdrop here of I just screenshot of Scotland. It's just that's a great day in Scotland right now. It's
a live weather green screen behind him.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't see the name, but it's someone's written notes of an old-fashioned cocktail on the palate for me, which I don't think I've had before. Also notes of Angostura bitters. I get that bitters note. I know what you mean by that. There's a certain bitter note to it, which could be the hops, the ex-hops that has been through that cask. Hops are quite bitter, so they do get a little bit of that going on. Well, hello, gentlemen, says Alex Dallenberg. Alex, hope you're well. Good to see you.
G'day, Alex.
And well done, haha. Yep, shirt to match. Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, so whilst the beers are still somewhat cold, and I've just literally pulled them out of the fridge just before we went live, I think we might crack open the Tempest Old Parochial. So I'm going to hold that to the camera so we can all see it here. And we're going to, so pour, if you've got a beer glass, you want to pour a little bit of that into your beer glass. If you want to share it around with someone at home, I recommend it because this is 13% ABV.
Yeah, Matt, you and I tried this a while ago. This is a big, heavy, rich beer, and at 13%, that'll a few of these that'll slow you down a bit. But I'm looking forward to everyone trying this and getting some comments because it's an extraordinary beer, and I can't remember tasting too many in this sort of vein.
No, it's I'm just going to turn that overlay off for a second. He's how do I show that without ruining everything? Let me try that again. Here we go. So there's the Tempest logo up on the screen at the moment, and I want to talk a little bit about what these guys do. It's a fascinating story. It started in 2010 for Tempest. It's the Andrew line of my night. Here we go. Look at the color. Look at it. But it's a very rich Scotch ale. This one, it nose into the glass on that. Now this is a cask matured. Society matured beer. I'll talk about the beer in a second. The brewery, Tempest Brewery, started in 2010. It started from Gavin and Annika Michael John, a couple who met at a brew pub in New Zealand from memory. And it was New Zealand. And someone mentioned Gavin was making beers in his basement, and someone mentioned, why don't they make beers like this in Scotland? Like this would be an amazing beer in Scotland. And so it wasn't long before they moved there and started Tempest properly. Set up a small outpost in Kelso, and then it outgrew itself by about 2013, and they moved into Tweedbank, which is about an hour's drive south of Edinburgh. So and they've won all sorts of awards over the years and are environmentally friendly and give a lot to charity. They're almost the perfect story, and they do a big festival each year called Springfest, which didn't happen in 2020, or maybe it did. But that was it's their big beer festival. It's one of the bigger beer festivals in Scotland these days, and it's turned into something of quite a behemoth, actually. So it's what I would encourage you to do is actually to have a taste. Oh, there now we're both up big on the big screen. Okay, I can take us back to the small screen. I don't know, this works as well. So oh yeah, you got the logo. So I'll push us back to here. Okay, so pour a nice sample of that beer. And pour yourself.
Love your glass.
Oh, you'll love this. It's one of my favorite beer glasses. It's like I don't know. It was I can't remember the brewery name now. Actually, Zitho Brewing Glass. And my dishwasher is so powerful it scrubbed the logo off the glass, but the glass is still fine. It's probably cleaner than it's ever been. I would pour yourself a dram of the 39.207 Backseat Brewer to go along with this one. So this Backseat Brewer, this 39.207, was whiskey that was matured in these casks. Now, this is not a single cask beer. This is a single cask whiskey that spent time in these ex-beer casks. So this is what we would call a perfect pairing, an example of where the whiskey and the beer have interacted with each other at some point. Now, it's also a good opportunity for me to mention that we have some very, very limited availability of some of these bottlings that have gone up online as of right now. In fact, those who are pretty savvy may have already spotted them. They're up online at the moment, and that includes the 39.207 Backseat Brewer. I think there's 2 bottles of the 12.49 up online, and 1 or 2 bottles of the last whiskey as well, which we haven't even talked about yet, but they've gone up online as of right now in case you wanted to jump on any of those. I'm going to throw that chat overlay back up on screen. This system never shows my name. BBB.
That's Mr. Waller.
Oh, there we go. Any relation to Joey from the band Europe?
That's an Alex question if ever you got one. Crikey. Can I just say, you like your pale ales. I love my Scotch ales. I love a Scotch ale. And someone once asked me, what's the definition of a Scotch ale? And my simple answer is it's a beer that you need to chew before you swallow. Scotch ales are just so thick, and this is everything I want. It's so thick and unctuous. Obviously, dark roasted malts there. Very sweet and malty. There's a pretty reasonable Scotch ale that you can get at your local Dan Murphy's. The Belhaven one, Belhaven Scotch ale with the saltier, the Scottish flag on it, which is if you want to try out this, explore this category of beer a little more, I can thoroughly recommend that as a good Scotch ale to dive into.
Awesome. So for those wondering how to enjoy a Boilermaker, there's no sort of set rules on how to do it. I would recommend having a nose of the whiskey, a taste of the beer, and then a taste of the whiskey in that order. That's what I like to do. I like to have a nose of that, a taste of the beer, and then have a taste of that whiskey.
Wow. If Mr. Franz Schurer was here, he'd be saying 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
That's an incredible match. And I think the beer has just brought some features and characters out of the whiskey that's really just shot out of the glass that I didn't detect earlier before the beer.
And we've imaginatively called that one, the panel have called that backseat brewer. So I think that's kind of fun that they've even paid homage to the brewing aspect of that cask. And that one's up online at the moment, 39.207. We've had obviously a long relationship with Distillery 39. It's a nice steady supply of great casks out of that. I think it's also very aptly in the sweet, fruity, and mellow profile there.
Well, look, I've shared this story before, but back when the Australian branch of the society launched, you used to get a welcome bottle. So you'd sign up for the society, and we would send you a welcome bottle. And that welcome bottle came from Distillery 39 for about the first 4 or 5 years. So every member who joined between 2002 and about right up to 2006, 2007 got a bottle from Distillery 39. Not the same one, of course. It moved on. We used to bring in about 24 bottles at a time from a certain cask. So there'd be a pack of 24, and then the next shipment we'd bring in another 18 from some other cask and whatever. So you're absolutely right. The distillery and the society had a fantastic relationship going way back then, and one that we've obviously still maintained.
That beer is just insane. The longer it's been sitting in the glass and the closer it's reaching room temperature, the more it's just turning into a beer syrup in my glass. It's getting thicker and thicker and thicker as the temperature changes on it.
Yeah, actually, Matt Waller's just said something here which I seriously agree with. This beer is seriously sweet. 13% ABV equals I can't type straight in 10 minutes. And, I should mention that it is 3.4 standards per little can, but yeah, for a little 330 ml can. That's what I said earlier. A couple of these will slow you down.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have 4 packs of this beer actually for sale on the Society's website. Now, in the past, many years ago, if the Society ever put beer up for sale on our shop page for members, there would have been some sort of outrage, surely. There would have been some outcry like, oh, what's become of our Whiskey Society? Why are you selling beer? We're just interested in sharing the best flavour has to offer. And this has a direct connection to the Society. In fact, if you take a moment to read the back of the can, it does say, in the spirit of this, an Imperial Scotch Ale aged in single malt casks from Speyside, courtesy of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So it's a direct collaboration with a Scottish brewery, a Scottish cask, and we're really happy to have brought some of this cask in and some of that beer in as well to share with members. So that is really, I would call that a very, very good pairing, or as Andrew said, a 1 + 1 = 3. Sure, a reference right there. Great comment. What are your opinions on barrel-aged beers versus adding wood chips to add flavor? I mean, I've seen both done, and I'm sure I think doing the wood chip approach for brewing is fine. It's we've seen that success of that, but I don't think it really works for whiskey. And Lachlan Bell says, "Oh, damn, so good." That's amazing, and that whiskey really does it. It just balances out.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
What I like is, for me, distillery nice. Forgive me.
39.
Maybe I did have a few of these before we started. Distillery 39 for me. If you had to pigeonhole it, which is a nasty thing to do to any distillery, but if you had to pigeonhole it, for me, it's always very, very light, grassy. It's that typical sort of fruity Speyside character, and yet when I have it with this beer tonight, all of a sudden it's a meaty, gutsy Speyside, almost like a Glenfarclas in a bourbon barrel. It just seems to have a lot more weight to it, and I think that interestingly the beer has brought that out. And I don't really recall having too many Distillery 39s and thinking that previously.
So you think it's meatier than your typical 39?
Yeah, that's how I'm finding it. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Matthew Herditch, for that comment. There's it's positively syrupy on the palate for that beer, and I think I know what you mean by that meatiness. It's if I was to taste this blind, if I was to taste this 39, not knowing it's a 39, it could be very much mistaken for being a 36, 76, a 48, something in that realm.
Bingo. Sorry, you were just reading out some really cool numbers there.
Yeah, sorry. Right. Yeah, very cool. Before we move on to just a few other things to with tonight's tasting, I also want to make mention that there's actually, I'm giving away a 4-pack of the following beer, of the Carbonado, which is the really special one we've worked on. Best photo wins. So post a photo of your setup tonight into our Facebook group. Just post a photo, tag myself, tag Andrew, do whatever you want, and post it in the group. And the most creative or interesting looking photo setup of tonight's tasting with your home virtual tasting lineup wins a 4-pack of the cans. And I'll just I'll post on the post that wins it. Why not? Bit of fun. It's I think we might move on to the next one in a moment. I would recommend taking your time with that, though. It's like I said, that Tempest, I've still got a good 2/3 of a can going on here, so I might need to nurse that for a little bit longer. I think you've probably got this. You're probably in much the same boat as me, Andrew.
Yeah, I really like this, so I'll be honest and say I went hard and went early, so not much left in mine.
But it's really going to be the Fosters that preceded it that tips you over the edge, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's it, exactly. But I do find when you get to ales of this strength, they do, for me personally, I think I prefer them a bit more chilled. So I don't think you'd want to leave this out for too long. I think the warmer it gets, and as Matt Waller said, it does get sweeter and probably starts to become a bit too cloying after that. So I think it's one to not spend an awful lot of time allowing to come up to temperature.
There are a few SMWS who we have found that don't work at some level. I don't know what that means. You mean they don't work with beer pairings, or they don't, or they were different from what you expected? I'd love to know to expand on that one. Before we go on, I want to introduce our next beer. And whilst we're enjoying that previous one, you might want to start cracking open the can of your Carbonado. This is a rather special beer that is a collaboration, is a 4-way collaboration between the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, Whiskey and Ailment in Melbourne, Good Beer Week, and of course Hop Nation that filled this with their beer. And we're really excited that that Whiskey and Ailment were serving it behind the bar, but we are the only ones selling cans of this, and this is the only time in this pack. Otherwise, you'd get to taste it. So I might take this moment now to introduce Duncan and Bass from Hop Nation. Duncan and Bass, welcome to the stream.
Hello. Hey guys, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for taking a chunk out of your Friday night of freedom to join us.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, awesome. First of all, welcome and thank you so much. Do you guys want to tell everyone who's viewing along tonight what your roles are and maybe a bit of history about Hop Nation, how it all came about? We're sort of going back to 2015 a bit here.
You can go first. Duncan. I'm one of the founders of Hop Nation, and this is Baz, one of our epic sales reps, who got this all off the ground. So me and my friend Sam started Hop Nation back in 2015. We both came from winemaking backgrounds, so worked a lot with casks and in our time. But yeah, we both ended up in Australia here, started Hop Nation and Footscray, really worked on more our hoppy style beers, but coming from a winemaking background, we sort of decided that we wanted to get casks and oak back into our beers. So started Site Fermentation Project, which is a sour beer project. This beer that you're drinking tonight sort of fits more in with that Site Fermentation Project style of beer rather than the Hop Nation hoppy style of beer that we do. Yeah,
awesome. And this was a cask that was filled, and I'm going to say around February in 2020.
Yeah, so I guess it's in a way it's kind of it's great. Well, it's sad because we couldn't release it at the time we wanted it to release it, but it's also great because it ended up spending 2 years in this barrel rather than what we're sort of planning, which is about 6 months in barrel due to COVID restrictions. So we left it for a lot longer in barrel, so you get more of that. Firstly, let's talk about, we haven't really talked about the beer that we put to barrel, but we put Palmer, which is our oatmeal stout. So an oatmeal stout, you use a lot of oats in it, which gives you that sort of like mouthfeel and fullness in it, with lots of like roasted and toasted malts, but still with a reasonably low ABV. So I think this came out at about 5%. We then put it into the barrel, and we're supposed to just leave it there for 6 months and then get it out. So we're going to get those real fresh whiskey sort of characters, not with much complexity of souring or Brettanomyces and other things going on. But because we left it for 2 years in oak with, what COVID forced us to do, and we liked where the barrel was going as well, we got a lot more sort of, I guess, umami, like soy kind of characters along with that really sort of, smoky whiskey character coming along into it as well. So for me, it's a super exciting beer. We're super stoked to do it. It's
really awesome.
Yeah.
The photos I'm showing just on the main screen are some of the production photos of when the casks just arrived. And I say casks, plural, which I'll talk about in a moment. But for those playing along at home, I encourage you to open your sample of 53.314 anthracite seasoning dust and pour that dram and pour your open your can of Carbonado.
Guys, can I just say, whilst you were discussing all of that and giving us some insights, I was just I started by just nosing the whiskey, put it to the side, then picked up my beer and started nosing that, and the shared commonality, the DNA, was identifiable instantly. Straight away, I nosed the beer, sniffed the beer, and it smelled familiar already, simply because I'd smelled that one just a moment earlier. Like the influence that's come through is incredible. And now maybe it's psychosomatic, but I'm just nosing this, and I've had a few mouthfuls now, and it's the most delicious beer. But I am drinking it, and I'm just thinking Distillery 53. I'm getting that connection straight away. It is such an amazing link between the two.
Yeah, no, we found that as well. Like, to me, that pairing in those two drinks is incredible, especially the nose for me. Obviously the palate's it's quite different, but on the nose, you nose both of them, and they're very, very similar. The beer goes into, because it's been soured and with different sort of bacteria, you go into like a funky landscape, which is quite different with a bit of acidity, and the whiskey's a bit different than that. But the nose it's amazing, the similarities for sure.
Well, I'm going to commend and compliment you because I'm not generally a fan of beer, of sour beers, but this one is just working. It's just a treat. So it's such a lovely drop.
Thank you.
So to give some context into this of where the creation sort of comes together, this was cask 53.314, which is a 10-year-old refill bourbon hogshead from Islay, from Distillery 53. The outcome was it's a hoggy, so it yielded quite a bit. It's 304 bottles. All 304 bottles were actually earmarked for our friends over in the China branch. And it took a bit of sort of wrangling to get a very small number of bottlings from that cask shipped over to Australia so that we could actually do this pairing with you tonight. But there the casks are, and I say casks plural, which I said I'd get to, but this is a 19 month matured sour oatmeal, Karma oatmeal stout that has matured in an X53 cask of which the very whiskey is in your glass right now. So we started with the 12.49, which is an example of beer maturation whiskey. The second pairing was one whiskey from a batch of casks of Speyside casks that Tempest used, but this is a single cask beer matched with the exact single cask whiskey together right now. And I think what Andrew said is just bang on, that it could be a fair bit of psychosomatic going on there, but it's there's a lot of similarities, and they just match up so nicely.
Shall we talk a little bit about the other cast that didn't quite come to fruition?
I'm going to bring up that screen just for a moment to show some of the what was going on here on screen. We can see there's two casks there and a bit of a inspecting of the bungs going on. And what I loved about these casks is they're refill hogsheads, and they've had some life. And I love that one of the cask heads still had the old metal John Walker and Sons Limited Kilmarnock plaque on the outside. Not even a plastic and staple job anymore. This is a metal, like a brass plaque on the outside of the cask. It looked fantastic just seeing something that's been around that long. And there's of course a photo of this very cask being filled, which was a cool moment, and getting ready to sit around for a while. And there's some outdoor photos of course the brewery. Now the cask, and there's our can for tonight, which we're enjoying. The other cask, of course, was the Scorbrass, which was going to be in this pack, and isn't. As the other cask from which was going to be. We imported the 53, but we also imported a 68, an ex-Blair Athol cask. So, Duncan and Bass, you guys want to lead us through a bit of what happened with Scorpion Grass?
So, the thing with producing sour beer is it doesn't always work out exactly how you want it, and when you have a loss, sometimes you've got to cut the loss. And with the other barrel, we filled it with Lappan, which is our vintage cherry sour ale that we do every year. So a very important beer to us, a pretty expensive beer as well to put down the drain. We filled that cask up, and it ended up with a lot of volatile acidity once it finished its maturation. Volatile acidity is nail polish remover. It's disgusting. It's not nice to drink. We ended up having to put that whole cask down the drain there, which was a huge shame, but just something that happens with making sour beer and doing these things. You lose some every now and again. So yeah. We sort of touched on the point that in the whiskey industry, if a whiskey is not playing ball, if it's not working out, you have options. Yeah. You can re-rack, you can finish, you can sell to blenders. There's things that can be done. Whereas in beer, you didn't really have that option. You canned it up. You went to the effort of canning, labeling, designing everything here, and then it just not working out in the end. And I think it's actually a testament to Hop Nation and the quality of beer you produce that you weren't just going to say, well, we've done all this, we may as well just release it and hope for the best. You were saying that this isn't of quality, we shouldn't release it. And I actually respect that. Yeah, we happened with this beer, but it happened to other beers that we've made, along the track as well. We only release beers that we truly believe are in the right place and, not faulted and are very good. So, it's not the first time it's happened. We've definitely thrown other beers down the drain as well that we don't feel are up to scratch, but we'd rather do that than release something that's a bit shit.
Out of interest, are you starting to get a handle on what the tipping point is? Like, what's the catalyst that does make one of these go south and not up to the standard you want? And is it something you can put your finger on, or is it just the luck of the gods? How do you feel about that?
So you got two sort of parts of it. You got like our clean beer side of things. It's very clinical. We can easily put our finger on what's gone wrong, but sometimes it does go wrong. So sterility, making sure everything's super clean. If we get infections, we get all our beer like lab tested to make sure it doesn't have any infections. If something happens and it does have an infection or is oxidized or whatever, then we get rid of it. So that side's really easy to see what's gone wrong or to understand what's gone wrong or know what's about to go wrong. But with sour beer, you're talking about something that's got thousands of microbes in it. Everything's working differently, and it's very much it's way harder to put a finger on exactly what you did wrong.
But we also we thought this beer was only going to be in cask for like 3 to 6 months.
Exactly, yeah.
And it ended up being quite a long term. And I mean, it worked well for one of the casks, but the other casks didn't quite work.
Okay, so that's a fair call, but maybe in this case, time just got away from you as a result of the circumstances.
Yeah. But with sour beers, it's because you've got all this complexity of different microbes and stuff going on. It is far harder to put your finger on exactly what went wrong during the process. There's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
I think you've just answered Kristen's question there. To Hop Nation guys, is this more specific to sour beers or barrel-aged beers? It's more specific to sours, it seems.
Sours, yeah, for sure. With our, like we do our Kalash, we do it in 2 forms this year. So we did it in Bakery Hill barrels, and we did it in fresh bourbon barrels from the States. And that beer is fermented clean, like a hoppy beer. Then we put it straight into the barrels. We age it for about 4 months in barrel and then take it out. And at that stage, we make sure we get it tested, make sure there's been no infection on the way through, and then blend it up and make it like a normal beer. And that's a far more sort of safe, streamlined way to do it. You get the character of the cask, but you're not getting any other microbes going on in there.
That Bakery Hill Kalash I thought was just stunning. That was such a good drink.
It's
comments coming through. Annalisa asks what cask did the Scorpions go into? It went into a 68.32, so a ex-Blair Athol cask, which is right in that photo at the moment. So we still have a small number of bottles from that cask that we will pop up soon, but the beer, unfortunately, as we said, just didn't work out. And I do again commend the Hop Nation guys for not releasing it and saying that it could have thrown it in this pack. We could have done it with Good Beer Week. We could have worked together on that one, but I'm just glad kind of we didn't. And
it's funny because there is an escape clause now for beer makers. Like you can have one get away from you, and it's absolutely in territory you don't want it to be. But now that we have this tasting note called funky, you can get away with it. And everyone go, oh, it's a really funky flavor, funky beer. It's you can fall back on it. And as Matt says, I do commend you for just saying, nope, this is not our brand. I think that was a good move.
Yeah. Also with when you're doing bigger blends and stuff of sour beer, you might be able to poke something in there that's like a little bit you're not completely happy with, but you've got a big blend of 20 or 30 barrels and you can get away with it, like you were saying with whiskey. But when you're releasing something that's a single cask like this, if it's not right, it's not right.
So for the viewers and members north of Victoria and in the northern states, how easy is it to track down the Hop Nation beers? How do we go about sourcing your stock?
We're pretty well ranged nationally. I mean, we've got our own sales reps based in Queensland and New South Wales. We've got a stronghold in Victoria. We're about to start doing our own distribution in South Australia as well, so you'll start seeing us pop up a bit more. And we've got distributors in the other states, and WA itself, our distributor over there, is doing a really killer job. So you pretty much get us most of our core range anyway nationally. but we also do ship nationally from our online store as well. So
awesome. It should also just be, I just want to remark on the process that went through to bring these casks into Australia without getting fumigated or destroyed was something else entirely. Finding that right moment of the year when there's no brown bug infection, there's no problems with any bringing in untreated wood into Australia is near impossible. And my biggest fear was that these two casks with all these aromas and history would get some bloke down at customs filling it full of pesticide and fumigation to stop any problems. And thankfully, it passed through without any fumigation or any problems. And so we were very happy that we were able to pass these actual ex-society casks onto Hop Nation to fill with beer, and that even one of them came to fruition is extremely exciting. And there's a photo, by the way, of Jules from Whiskey and Ale, like a kid in a candy shop, so excited when the casks arrived there. And there were lots of noses poked into bungs that day.
I don't think I've ever seen a happier man on the planet. The day that those casks arrived and Julian rode in on his bike.
Yeah, that was a very happy day for him, because it was months in the building of bringing those casks here and then hoping they'll get filled. And then, of course, COVID hit and they were maturing longer than we anticipated. And it was a case of just, hit and hope. And then I'm so glad that this 53 worked out. There are 4 packs of the Carbonado actually available on the Society website, as I said, and they're available right now online. So if you want to jump on that beer, I know I'm certainly going to buy myself a 4-pack of that. This is the first time I've actually tasted it from the can rather than from the canning line or from the cask. And I think this is really exciting to actually finally get to this point.
Out of interest, Matt, when the casks were transported, was there any liquid put inside them to aid them with their journey, or were they shipped and landed dry?
They shipped and landed dry, but they were actually, when we were worried that they were going to need a bit of coopering when they arrived, they were going to need a bit of repair, but they were actually fine. And you guys, Bass, I remember you saying that they didn't require any repair or coopering to actually bring them up to being filled with beer.
No, I think when we first put it in, they were a little bit leaky, but I mean, all we did was just smash up the hoops a bit more, and it pretty much sealed it up. It didn't take much at all.
Yeah, fantastic. So sending it to.
We get and fill a lot of overseas barrels for all our different projects that we're doing, and they were tip top. They were really good.
They were easier than Kalash that year. Yeah. Kalash that year only. Leaked like a sieve.
and guys, just out of interest, do you both enjoy a whiskey? Are you both whiskey drinkers?
We're getting there. I mean, obviously we drink a lot of beer. We are getting more into our spirits, definitely. Duncan got pretty into them about 6 months ago and ordered himself a still. So that's a little side project that's coming on board in the next few months. So I guess, I mean, it's for work now, so I can claim it.
Yeah, for sure. Some great comments coming through, some really complimentary comments coming through. I drink a lot of Hop Nation, but this is something else. That's really good to hear. Great to hear as well from all these people enjoying these. So Bass, Duncan, I want to thank you both for coming on the stream tonight. I won't hold you up anymore. Have a fantastic Friday night. Have a great weekend. And thank you so much for being part of this collaboration with Whiskey and Almond, Good Beer Week, ourselves, and building this incredible beer to share with members. I think it's been great.
Thank you guys so much for having us here and giving us the opportunity to do it and to share it with you guys. It's amazing. This is what this is why we make beer.
Fantastic.
Well,
thank you guys.
Well done, and thank you. That was really, as I say, that's, and I echo Lachlan's comments on the stream there as well. That's a friggin' tasty beer. Well done.
Really good.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Andrew, that brings us to the end of our formalities of our tasting.
Well, except for one thing, we haven't said much about the actual whiskey itself.
We haven't said much about the 53 .314 anthracite seasoning dust. They're probably already spoken for on the site. I don't know, but some people said it's an incredible whiskey. There's 2 bottles for sale. That's it. I'm holding one of them right here, so it's going to come from my office. So I'm going to have to ship this to anyone who wants it. They're available on the site now. We do see a lot of 53s. We see a lot of 53s in that sort of 9, 10, 11 bracket, and then most of them are refill. But that one is something else. I've got a tiny bit left in my little dram bottle here. I'm going to have
It's funny. You say we see a lot of it, and we see a lot of it now. Well, wind the clock back 5 years, we were seeing very little from 53, and the 53s we were getting through were quite aged, 17, 18, up to 22 years old, you might recall. So it's fantastic to have some society 53s that are back down at the younger end. But there's a sweetness to this that, and I think that's one of the reasons why the sweetness of this whiskey works so well with the sour in the beer. The sweet and sour combination was just extraordinary. And then you throw the peat and the smoke in, and what more do you want? Obviously a sherry Glenfarclas, but kind of everything.
We can't have everything all the time, right? I mean, I encourage members to again try that sort of like that combo that I quite like. Nose that whiskey, have a small taste of the beer, and then a small taste of the whiskey.
I love Dominic's put a comment in here, which I really like. Score is 1-1, Great Britain versus Australia. That's a good one.
And good stuff, gents. Now for a VB palate cleanser. Sure, Herdo, sure.
Not sure cleanser was quite the word to finish that sentence with, but anyway.
Glenfarclas peated question mark. I don't think so.
Oh, if only. I've asked the question, don't worry.
That's a remarkable pairing, and that's a single cask beer, single cask whiskey, local brewery pairing right there. And I think that's really exciting that we got to do that with these guys and create such an incredible pairing, an incredible product there. That beer is something else. That's fantastic. And one I'm very happy that has our monogram on the can, and we're a part of that collaboration there.
I really echo Kristen's comment there. She just put up. If there's one takeaway from this evening: sniff the whiskey, drink the beer, drink the whiskey, repeat. Absolutely. Yeah.
Repeat. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome.
In Boilermaker terms, that's called repeat welding. So I like it.
That's your done. Just to finalize on a few other little formalities as we head into the end of the tasting tonight. I was meant to show that photo earlier. That's the inside of the cask of 53. The stories that char could tell, I'm sure would be fascinating. But there's if we just take a look at what's coming up. Of course, it is Outturn Week coming up next Friday is our August Outturn. If you haven't got a copy, that's okay because you can view it online. But some of you still like the old school paper, and there it is. It's an A4 sized edition because it's a big edition. Andrew and myself have written articles in here, along with Luke McCarthy, who's written the early part of it all. And it's not just, of course, the 147.1. There's 13 other bottlings in here to dig into, which we're going to take a longer look at next week, leading into the Friday for Outturn, including a 48 for the Malt of the Month, which is very exciting. So it's a bit of a milestone issue for us. It's a very special issue for us. And of course, not included in that term, but just released last week was our Champs cask, which is the 7.234 in celebration of 30 years of the AMWTC. And that I was going to show. There it is. There's 147.1. I meant to show that earlier. That's coming along in our August Outturn just next Friday. And of course, which my screen doesn't make any sense when it's landscape like that, but around the world virtual tasting is our next big virtual. Andrew and I will be hosting a series of drams that explore around the world: Scotland, Australia, Japan, Wales, and America. Taking a trip whilst we're stuck in Australia without any international travel. It'll be fun to actually do some international travel around the world with some drams there. And
I'm tremendously looking forward to that one, Matt. I reckon it's going to be a fantastic tasting.
That's going to be great. Just to explore all the different nuances of different world whiskies, and especially being able to. It's the first time we've ever been able to put an Australian whiskey in a world tasting at the society as well, which is huge. That's huge for us, and we're really excited to show that. And of course, how are the aerodynamics on that plane, though? Well, the plane is built out of a society bottle with wings on it, so probably not too good. Any aerodynamic engineers in here, please pipe up now or forever hold your peace. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Big thanks to Bass and to Duncan for tuning in as well and for being a part of this project and building that beer with us. And it's midday next Friday. Sorry, some of the comments coming in. Midday next Friday is, of course, the outturn. First Friday of every month at midday AEST is when outturn hits. Andrew, thank you so much for your Friday time as well. Thank you so much, everyone, tuning in.
Okay. Look, I just want to chime in and say what you've been very modest about this tonight, and what the viewers at home won't know is that this was a pet project of yours and one that you drove and pushed along. So, mate, congratulations on a fantastic outcome and well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No, it's been a cool project that was sort of kicked off in, like mid to late 2019, to be honest, that then was filled in early 2020, and now in nearly August 2021, we get to enjoy the fruits of that labor, which I think is really exciting to see that come about. So thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that.
And just in response, there's a question that's come in here on the Facebook group. It says, "Hey team, is there a virtual for the AR release?" Yes, if you join in the Whiskies of the World next month, the AR release is going to be in that lineup. So yeah, sign up for that one.
We don't know what AR means. We say 147 in our lingo, but yes, there is going to be something in there, and that's exciting, and that's part of that around the world. Have a read of your outturn. It's on the website. It's in your inbox. It's online. It's everywhere. Or it's in your mailbox. If you haven't checked your mailbox, you're probably allowed to go that far out of your house at the moment. I don't know. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week for some streams on the upcoming outturn. But otherwise, Slanjava.
Slanjava, well done. Cheers. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.